Thanksgiving night on NBC. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth on the call. It will be Steelers-Ravens, even though the Ravens continue, Chris, to get more positive results. Yesterday, linebacker Pernell Mcphee joined the list of players who have tested positive and will not play. Running backs Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins already out for Thursday's game. Brandon Williams on COVID-19 reserve could possibly emerge from it, but if he was exposed on Sunday, the math doesn't work. It doesn't allow him to get off of that list until Friday because you got a 5-day absence if you had close contact with someone who was positive. But you know what? Here's the thing. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because the NFL's attitude became with that Buccaneers-Raiders game several weeks ago. We're playing. Next man up. You don't have a guy? Get a guy. Practice squad, wherever, however, suit him up and let's go. And I think that's going to continue to be the NFL's attitude unless there are ultimately insufficient raw numbers of guys who can be put on the field at any given time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, I like that, you know, the NFL is not going to back down or change or try to reschedule or do things like that, you know, and appeal to teams who, have lost the battle for the time being to COVID-19. I'm all for that. You know, to me, that keeps the incentive of what we talked about all offseason where, hey, you know, it's on the players to, oh, man, we're in the middle of a legit playoff race, and if we lose one more game, we might be out of here. Maybe I shouldn't go to a restaurant or go to some gathering or something like that. And I understand you can't avoid the virus at all costs. I get that. I'm not trying to be insensitive that way. But, you know, I think that, you know, the incentive here is pretty apparent. And as for a team like the Baltimore Ravens, you know, it's unfortunate that's hit them right now. And basically we're getting down into like must-win territory and a huge game for them, not, you know, forget the division, to go to the playoffs. So that's where, you know, I like the stance of the NFL in this matter right now because ultimately it comes back to hurt the team that, you know, deserves to get hurt for lack of a better way to say that.
And let me amplify one of your points because I will be insensitive because I don't think it is insensitive to say that NFL players should be avoiding the virus at all costs. They have the resources, they have the means to set up in their homes a place where they go. Now, hey, you're home with your family, but that doesn't mean you have to be face-to-face with them, especially if they're possibly being exposed to people who have it. You have a room that you go to, you take all the precautions, wash your hands, and don't breathe the same air as the other people who are living in the house who possibly have been infected. It's not that difficult if you're committed to it, and it's stay home. It's don't go out. It's treat this thing as a 5-month challenge to stay away from the virus and keep the virus away from you if you truly want to avoid hurting your team.
I know, you're right.
The alternative is stay in a hotel.
Yeah,
See, that's the thing. The NFL has tried to balance this so guys can go home, but if you catch it, you're out, period. You still get paid, right? It's not like the game's canceled and you lose your game check, but you're contributing to the parade of guys who potentially could result in the whole thing collapsing. So, there's a level of personal responsibility here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying so.
You're right. I just meant, you know, like it's hard sometimes, especially if the kid, you know, your kid is going to school, doing things like that. But you're right. I mean, there's still plenty of ways to avoid it. I just wasn't trying to sound like a total jerk. Good job doing it for me. But
I'll go ahead and be the total jerk because
you're right, Mike.
You want to be able to play.
Yeah,
you ultimately want to be able to play.
That's the ultimate thing here. Do you think here, as we get into now, post-Thanksgiving, you know, if I'm teams towards the bottom of the playoff shuffle right now, and I'm a coach, man, I'd have a hard time not starting to say stuff to my players and my coaches here. If we're going down like, hey, if you're the Raiders, or maybe the Raiders aren't a good example because they're practicing herd immunity there. But if you're the Arizona Cardinals or Tampa Bay down here in the stretch, these type of teams where you know, like, hey, we're in the bottom of the playoff picture right now, 1 or 2 more losses, we could be in trouble and be out of this thing. I don't know, do these organizations continue to, you know, to try to push players to do that and go into the hotel? I mean, I'm fascinated by that aspect of it. I mean, because legacies are on the line here for players, for teams, for coaches, a lot of them. I mean, I think of Adam Thielen. Hey, Adam Thielen could be NFL touchdowns receiving leader this year. Now he's got COVID. He might never be able to hold that, you know, title again. So there's a lot here, and I that's where I just wonder if this will come up now that Thanksgiving's over and we're going to get into December and it's that last push. I don't know. You got any thoughts there?
Well, Thielen has COVID unless he doesn't. There is a report that he was positive and now he's negative.
Oh,
and maybe
okay.
he'll end up being negative.
But you know what I
back.
mean by the example.
I know what you mean.
Right.
Look, I just wanted to make sure we didn't give anybody the wrong impression. Yep. And the thing, it's impossible to keep up with everything as it relates to COVID.
Man.
On top of following the games, we have this separate universe of news that has infiltrated football this year, and hopefully it'll be for this year only. I know that the league has been petrified of what may happen when teams are no longer, as a practical matter, in the hunt. Will the players still be vigilant? And I talked to Kyle Rudolph about that back when the Vikings were 1-5. I said, what do you do as a veteran to get the message across? He said, it's not difficult. Guys know if we don't play, we don't get paid. So if all of a sudden we throw caution to the wind and half the team has COVID, like we see with these college programs where they don't have a financial incentive. People say, well, why are all these college games being canceled? The kids don't have any financial incentive to not get it, and they don't care. They're impervious to it, or at least they believe they are until they're not. But the vast majority of them don't get seriously ill. So that's why we see games getting canceled every week. And I think that as we do get deeper into the season, it is a real concern. The teams that are contenders, I think, will be locked down even harder. And maybe you do see teams in a hotel voluntarily where the leaders of the team, the player leaders, are the ones who say, we're all staying in the hotel. Sorry, that's just what we're going to do. But it really is a concern. And, Chris, my big concern is we had the admonition last week from the CDC, don't travel. The travel numbers are through the roof.
Yeah.
Through the roof.
Only 10
people
million
are traveling.
less people than last year.
Yeah, they're going to gather. They're going to share the same air. They're going to not be as careful as they could be or should be because it's a holiday. Everything's different on a holiday. Nothing counts on a holiday until the day after the holiday when you realize the scale still says what it says based on how much I ate, and I may get sick because of who I was standing next to all day long, who came in from New York City and flew through 2 different airports to get here. That's the problem because all those infections, as the numbers keep going up and up, that's just more opportunities for the players and the coaches when they go home, when they leave the facility, to end up getting it. And that's where we're going to be in a few weeks.
Well,
so
I mean,
I think the NFL has to
be
be very nervous about next week, the week after, into December, very, very nervous about where this is going to go.
Agreed. Because I've had this through text with a coach friend of mine, too, who's talked about, they try to give the message to the team to limit Thanksgiving, very close family, things like that. But I think, there's a thought out there with coaches, like you're just not going to tell some of these men to not have, more of their extended family over there. And I know that's careless and it's, irresponsible, but, at the same time, it's a weird time right now. People are locked down. They want to be with their family. And I'm not trying to make an excuse as I'm making an excuse here, but I think that's inside some of the logic of what players and people are thinking through the holidays. And man, I mean, next week, that's where I keep thinking about, my Uncle Johnny came in from Kentucky and, my Aunt Jeannie came in from Florida and blah, 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 blah. And they were here. And now, I'm back in the locker room and, hey, your family had who there? Oh, this guy from Alabama and this guy from California. Oh, great. I mean, so that it seems like it's a recipe for disaster going into next week.
And I agree with you, Chris. And I revert back to good old-fashioned leadership. What is leadership if it isn't telling people things they don't want to hear and expecting them to do things they don't want to do or to not do things they want to do? We all need a little bit of that at times. Left to our own devices, we will make bad decisions from time to time because we'll make selfish or stupid decisions, and we all need someone who can tell us when we're about to do something that is not the smartest thing we could do. There's nothing wrong with that. So I don't think a coach is being a jerk by sending the message to his players, hey, guys, I know it's Thanksgiving, but you know what? You can get a damn turkey anytime. Get your turkey in January after the season's over. Have Thanksgiving then. All it is a bunch of food. You don't need to risk your interests, our interests, your money, our money, because you're getting together with a bunch of people from out of town and you aren't able to say no to them. You tell them your coach said no. You tell them your coach said this is what you have to do. And, for the teams playing on Thanksgiving, it gives them a little bit of an out. Maybe it's a great thing this year to be one of the 6 teams playing on Thanksgiving. But I look, and here's why you get a little irritated, because I know what's going to happen. We've spent 15 minutes talking about this now. My email box is going to be full of complaints from all the people out there who never wanted to take this seriously, who still refuse to take this seriously, and don't want to hear us talking about it. And my message to them is, look, folks, if you insert expletives, 5 or 6 of them, had taken this seriously back in March, we wouldn't be screwing around with this right now. So don't blame us because it's news in the NFL, because it's a legitimate concern as to whether or not we're going to get the season. And it's your fault because you didn't take it seriously when the rest of us did, that we're still in this mess. So don't complain if we have to talk about it now, because it's still going on now because you didn't take it seriously. That's the kind of message that needs to be sent if we're ever going to get this thing fixed.
Yeah, no, well, you're right. You're right. Now, those people you're talking to, too, though, it goes back to something you said earlier, leadership, and that never happened in our country. We never had a national response.
It's going to happen soon.
So, well, yeah, hopefully.
Going to happen
but
soon.
People are confused. People don't know how, I don't know. So that's the problem. That goes back to leadership, and we know where that lack of leadership comes from. There was denial for a long time. So I just wonder if a star player is going to do something here. Is it going to take a Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that? Is it going to be like, man, I just saw LeBron James sacrifice a lot in the NBA, going a bubble for months because he's worried about his legacy. Like, is somebody like that going to step up to the plate here maybe, come December? Because, again, whether you think it's serious or not, or you're not scared of the virus, the simple fact of the matter is if your team gets it, you're in trouble. And therefore, that's news, and especially football news, and you might not have star players playing. So that's why we're talking about it. That's why we'll continue to talk about it, because it's the news of our country, our world, and it's infiltrated our sport. So I just wonder if that happens here at some point, to where some star player starts to go, hey, we got a chance we're a Super Bowl team here. We're Kansas City. We're 1 game out of being the 1 seed. We just need Pittsburgh to lose a game. I don't know. I just wonder if a player will start to get guys in the locker room to get their heads around it down the stretch here for the big prize at the end of the season.
I'd like to think they already are, and they just aren't publicizing it because they don't want their opponents to take it seriously. I mean, there's a chess game to this where, hey, guys, come on, look. Regardless of what you think of this virus, regardless of whether or not you think it's real or a hoax, here's the reality. It is out there, and if you catch it, you get knocked out for a week or 2. And if you're in close contact with someone who has it, you get knocked out of practice for a week. So it's there, and it's going to randomly pick us off if we're not careful. So let's be careful. Let's do everything we can to avoid it, period, regardless of whether or not we think it's going to make us sick or kill us. It's not. We're professional athletes. I mean, that's part of the bravado,
yeah.
Right? But still, to the extent that you just look around. Look at the teams that are dealing with it. Look at the Ravens this week. Look at the Raiders against the Buccaneers where they didn't have their offensive line the entire week. Look at the Ravens last week or a couple of weeks ago when they didn't have a bunch of defensive players. The Raiders this past week didn't have a bunch of defensive players. It's real. It's there. And I'd like to think that for the best teams, when you get in the locker room, when you're talking amongst yourselves. I'd like to think that. Maybe not, though, because, it's funny. When we see guys on the sidelines during games, I think they just believe that because we're tested every day, we're fine.
I think that's really
fine.
it.
We're tested every day, we're
100%.
fine. And they don't understand that donut hole between catching it, being exposed, having the incubation period, and then you can be negative until the day you're positive, and you don't find out until the next day that you were positive. It's really not that complicated, Chris. If you and I understand it, I'd like to think the guys in the locker room can understand it. You just have to assume that everyone you come in contact with has it and act accordingly. And I know it's not easy, and I know it's not convenient, and I know it's not comfortable, and I know there's a lot of voices out there that are being derisive about it and acting like you're being unreasonable for being concerned about it. But you know what? If you're not, You may not play this week. Your team may miss the playoffs because you weren't available. And then it's on you when your team doesn't make the playoffs. It shouldn't be that difficult to get that message across to 32 NFL teams.
No, but I think it goes back to what you said. The bravado of the NFL football player, not really scared of what the virus can do to them personally. I'm in great shape. I'm young. I'm not worried about that. And then the testing certainly, I think, is adding another layer of, relaxation there to just go, man, it's every day. I mean, it can't go that rampant through our team or anything like that. I mean, even though we've had little examples of that. So, no, I think I doubt there's been those conversations in the locker room yet. I doubt. I bet you there's guys, hey, go home, be careful, do that. But I don't know if I could say that guys will start to go, hey, maybe December we do the hotel thing, or, maybe the last 2 weeks going into the playoffs we do the hotel thing. I doubt those conversations have come up because I think guys are also reluctant to get involved in people's personal lives in the NFL locker room at times too. It's kind of like, hey, you do you, I'll do me, we'll meet at football, we'll meet together, and we'll work together, but then we leave the locker room and you do you and I'll do me, and that's kind of the culture of the NFL. So that's where it's going to be interesting to evaluate this whole thing here down the home stretch.
Maybe it'll be at the playoffs then when organically the teams that truly want to contend won't need to have a home market bubble that is done in a mandatory fashion. They'll all choose to do it. And look, the same issues we're dealing with now with people traveling and gathering for the Thanksgiving holiday, the same thing's going to happen in a few weeks when people travel and gather for the year-end holiday. And I don't know, maybe the aftermath of what happens this week when the numbers keep skyrocketing. And I don't know, are we all just numb to the numbers? The numbers are through the roof, and we all just like, well, no big deal. But no, it is a big deal. Maybe what happens next week and the week after will get people to reconsider their plans for the end of the year. But that leads right into the playoffs, Chris. You could have outbreaks for playoff teams that may not have, and they're still going to play the games. The question is, are you going to be at your best? Are you going to be as prepared as you can be? Are you going to have as many healthy players who are able to play the game as you can? And look at the Ravens, what they're dealing with this week. No practice yesterday. Everything was done virtually. The main day of practice on a short week, they weren't even in the building. There's no reason to think they're going to be in the building today.
No.
At some point, they have to get everybody together and go to Pittsburgh. Look, and again, the NFL's attitude is we're getting this in, we're getting this in, we're getting this in, we're getting this in. At some time in this process, though, the rubber's got to meet the road.
Right.
And you either have to be comfortable bringing everyone together or you're not.
Yeah, no, I know. This is where I think, Mike, too. Do you think teams look back at the year and look at the Titans and their situation and go, man, that's BS. That's bullcrap. They got the games canceled, didn't have to play when their team was going to be less at full strength. Now we're being forced to play. I'm just bringing it up there through conversation. It kind of popped into my head there. But, most of these teams, like we've talked about for the first 25 minutes of the show here, have been forced to play with these issues. Right. Tennessee got things juggled around to where, hey, we're all back healthy again and at full strength. Let's play a game now. I just kind of find that fascinating too.
Well, look, it's human nature to complain about anything that doesn't go your way. John Gruden was livid when the NFL decided not to bump the Buccaneers-Raiders game that was originally set for prime time, moved back to 4 o'clock in the event that they couldn't play it. They didn't want to have an empty hole in a prime time window. And we argued, I remember this vividly, play it on Monday, play it on Tuesday, let's go. We want to watch that game. We don't want it tucked into 4:05 p.m. Eastern when no one can see it. It's Tom Brady, it's John Gruden, it's Las Vegas, let's do it.
Right.
And the NFL's no, because if we delay it, there's no guarantee we're going to get it in. We're getting the game in. That was when everything shifted. So, yeah, you could be upset if you're the 49ers. Remember how they were ravaged on that Thursday night a few weeks back against the Packers.
Yep.
The Ravens, with their defense a few weeks ago, with their offense now, with their whole team now. Yes, there's reason to be salty about it, but the reality is, the overriding objective is, and we all need to accept this, and I know the NFL says that the health and safety of the players and the coaches is paramount, and I don't have any reason to doubt that. They've done a good job, for the most part, of keeping people from getting the virus. But just under paramount is getting paid, and you don't get paid if you don't play the games. You don't get your money from the networks. And I know it's not linear, like you get a check every week from NBC once the game has been played. But there is a broader relationship here. And if you're not delivering the product, it becomes a factor in whether and to what extent the money is going to flow in the direction of the NFL. So get all the games in. It's never an issue, especially at the time when the NFL is at the bargaining table with all the networks on the next round of deals. The NFL is obsessed with getting these games in. That's what the mindset became a few weeks ago. And whether or not an individual team thinks it's fair or unfair, Chris, to get back to your original point, keep your guys clean.
Yeah,
keep your guys safe.
Right.
Keep your guys virus-free, and it's on you if you don't.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And that's where back at that time, we were saying, no, they should forfeit it or whatever, for those reasons. But all right, well, we are where we are, and we'll see where this goes. Baltimore, wow, to be in this position, short week, these players all out of the game. I mean, this is crazy. It's the best team in football last year. A team we thought was going to just kind of steamroll their way to the Super Bowl, or at least to the AFC Championship game and play Patrick Mahomes. There was a letdown there, and this year it looked the way it started, and now here we are. I mean, I just never would have thought we'd be sitting here at the end of November going, I don't know if Baltimore's going to make the playoffs this year. It's just crazy. And now, I mean, it's not looking good this week as far as this matchup's concerned with some of these guys missing.
I want to go back to week one because I thought it would be a challenge for the Ravens to go into what Dennis Green called the Valley of 0-0 after being 14-2, losing in the divisional round. You bust your ass all year long. Everything goes your way. It's a special season. It all collapses on a 3-hour window on a Saturday night. Now you have to start the climb all over again. When they beat the Browns 38-6 to start the season, and I talked to John Harbaugh right after the game from the locker room, I said, what have you done to get your guys to forget about last year? Because that's my assumption. That's the Bill Belichick way. Last year doesn't matter. Last year's irrelevant. Last year's a distraction. Last year's not going to do anything to help you this year. Harbaugh said they talk about it. They embrace it. They want to meet that standard and exceed it. Well, that's all well and good until you get to the point where mathematically you can't meet that standard. And it doesn't take many losses to get to that point. And now they've doubled their losses from last year. They know that they're not going to meet the standard of last year. And what did last year get them? It got them a one-and-done playoff appearance. So they need to, on the fly, bury last year, Chris, and just accept here's where we are.
Right.
We're 6-4.
Right.
We're backed against the wall.
Right.
And they're quite possibly going to be 6-5 after tomorrow night. And you look at the rest of the schedule after that. They could get hot. They could run the table. They go 11-5.
Right.
But they need to get out of this we're the Ravens of 2019 and accept the fact that they have to become the gritty, dirty, raw street fighters who do what they have to do to win football games and try to get back to the playoffs the hard way.
No, I think that's a great point. And, to what John Harbaugh could say to his own team is go, hey, let's look at the team who won a Super Bowl last year, because that's basically what they did. 2018, magical year, 50 touchdown passes, 5,000 yards. Chiefs are unstoppable. AFC Championship game. Wow, we lose a heartbreaker to the New England Patriots. Next year, I mean, we were sitting at one point there going, what were they? They were 5-3 last year. 5-3 at one point. And they just said, you know what, screw it. We're just going to find a way to win every game. And then some were pretty, some were awesome, some were ugly as hell, but it didn't matter. And they just kind of battled through it and said, this is the way we are in 2019, And there's something to be learned about that. And maybe the Ravens can learn that and just realize it's not going to be as pretty. You're going to be battled, but you're battle tested, and you're going to have to find other ways to win. And we'll see if they can kind of, take it by storm here on the last month. But as it looks right now, I'm very doubtful. I don't like the look of the Ravens, and especially with the COVID thing and all of that. No, I'm definitely skeptical about the Ravens' chances to make the playoffs with the position they're in now.
Chris, the comment earlier this week from Lamar Jackson was telling. He said everybody wants to see us lose. That's part of the aura of being the team that's on top, but they're not that team anymore.
Right.
He needs to understand that. They are the team that everyone is just assuming at this point is going to continue to fall apart. You can use that to your advantage, and you can understand. Let's forget about the pride. Let's forget about the vanity that comes from being the 2019 Ravens, and we were 14-2. None of that matters now. All that matters now is winning week in and week out. And, how they handle the test this week, even if they lose, could lay the foundation for what comes on the back end of the mini bye because they fought through it and they proved a lot to themselves. They're taking the virus seriously now. Finally, maybe they're choosing to set up a voluntary bubble so they don't have to deal with it again. There's a way through this mess to find a positive.
No, there definitely is. I mean, if you win a game like this week, or even keep it close, and there's things to take away from it schematically, physically, hey, we did this, we did that, it could be one of those things that kind of brings the team together and, gives them one more, jack of energy to make a push here down the stretch. It's very possible. It doesn't take much in the NFL to just start going, hey, wait, we are pretty good, and hey, wait, why were we making it so complicated? One win, one positive moment can kind of change a team's mindset after a few weeks of like, what the hell is going on with us? We'll see if they can turn the tide this week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.